Hello. So in this video, we're going to continue with the Space Invaders tutorial. And we just implemented bombs, and the bombs even do collision with player. But we're going to do collision between the bombs and the lasers. That way the player can shoot them down to avoid getting hit by them. So a lot of what we have in place is going to help us. But the first thing would be to implement some kind of a function to handle that collision. So I'm going to take the function laser versus alien. That's kind of going to be my template here. So I'm going to make a new function called laser versus bomb. And I'll take in an L, comma, B for each of those sprites there. And then it's going to say if rect versus rect, which is a function, passing in L comma bomb, L comma B, right, for the laser and the bomb. So that again uses this rect versus rect function, which determines whether the two shapes collided, and then it will say true or false then. Right, so in the event that that is true, then what happens is L dot active will equal false. The laser should just kind of dissipate. And then B dot active should also equal false. Right, so this function knows how to check for that collision by using the rect versus rect function. And then it sets their active attributes to false, which the rest of the code is already set up to make them disappear then. But we need to call that function, and there are lots of combinations of lasers versus bombs here, so we definitely need to be in a for loop. And because it's a combination between a group of lasers and a group of bombs, we're going to have another nested for loop. So it's kind of like what we did with lasers versus aliens. So I'm going to go to the array that has the bombs, update sprite bombs, draw bomb, bomb versus player. All right, and then that's where I will call laser versus bomb, the function, which expects a laser first and then a bomb next. So I'm going to go ahead and make my nested for loop then. This code right here is going to be in the body of this new for loop. So notice that I'm before the ending of the loop. I want my new loop to be inside of it. So for my inner for loop, typically the way that I write it is let j equal 0, semicolon j less than lasers length j plus plus. By using j as opposed to I, then I have different variables, so I can check for each possible combination. So this is the point where I say laser versus bomb, which is a function. It expects, so parentheses, it expects a laser and a bomb. Now those are both inside of arrays, so I say lasers as the array, brackets j. Because j is the variable that's continuing up until the length of laser. All right, so that takes care of the one laser by using that index number with the brackets j, comma, bombs, brackets I. All right, like we've done with these other calls to functions inside this for loop. All right, so that should handle it. It's going to call their collision, and then that's going to turn their active false if that actually happens. The stuff down here already takes care of them disappearing. All right, so we can test this just to make sure that it's true. Should probably be a little tricky to test, hard to hit them, but I do think that I just saw an example of that where we did hit them. But really in the gameplay, you probably just want to avoid them anyway. They were falling faster than that I would kind of expect, but that's randomness. Maybe there's a little more predictable way we could change that instead of it just being random. So along these lines then, I want the bombs to start to disappear if they fall off the screen because they're continuing to be made. And that probably isn't going to cause a big deal, but it is going to slow down the computation a little bit. Because if I have a bunch, if I only really am seeing 5 bombs on the screen, but I'm still doing collisions with maybe 500 of them that are way off the screen. That's not as efficient as we could be. So we're going to take the idea that we use for alien versus walls and take that then to apply it to bombs. Now, I know pretty well that the bombs are really just going to fall down on the screen. So when I'm going to make a new function here. Function bomb versus, call it walls. It'll just be consistent with what I've said for aliens. It needs to understand which bomb we're talking about. So parentheses B. B is the parameter representing one of the bombs. So then I'm just going to say if b dot y is greater than height, which represents the height of the canvas, then that's when I say b dot active equals false. Right, just because, I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way that it is. Because I'm only doing one line right here, I don't actually need the curly braces with the if statement. Notice how here, some of these I would or I would not. But if I added a second line here, it's not going to understand that that would necessarily apply. So I'm not being very careful by doing that, but just to show you something different. Because this is the one next line, then it does know that it goes with that if statement there. I still need this closing curly brace though for the function. But since I brought that up, then the curly braces for if statements and else if statements are necessary for when you have multiple lines that you want to be part of that block. So else if, for example, I want both of these things to happen in that condition. So I do need curly braces because otherwise it would only apply to the first one and not to the second one. So it's a good tradition to just have them anyway, but I'll show you the difference. All right, so I defined how to do this function. I just need to call the function. So I should do that inside of the for loop for bombs here. So I'm going to say bomb versus walls, pass in a B, which on this side is bombs brackets I, because I need to access them from the array with a certain index number. All right, so this should, which we won't really see a lot of difference. All right, but something I could do is, all right, so again, I did this inside of this for loop here after the nested for loop. All right, so what I could do here is console.log bombs.length. All right, bombs is in the global scope, so I can do this. Notice how this console.log thing is going to happen every time the functions run because there's no curly braces here at the if statement. All right, so this should at least kind of prove to me that the number of bombs is staying fairly consistent, that it's not going into the hundreds or anything. There's still some randomness here, so this tells me how many bombs are on the screen at any one time. So these small numbers here show me that the bombs are actually quote unquote colliding with the bottom of the screen, and they're getting taken out.